Man's best friend, loyal companion. These terms of endearment have been given to pets over centuries, more specifically, dogs. Animals have naturally held essential roles in all different cultures of the world. Mythical creatures like dragons and unicorns are vastly regarded as powerful, while real animals like lions and elephants have been regarded as majestic and graceful. When it came to polytheistic religions, animals were even known to hold divine positions, either aiding or representing gods. This was no different for the Mayans, as jaguars represented kings and dogs a soul's companion. Today we're going to be looking at an artifact from the David Owsley Museum of Art. Going by the name of Dog, the artifact is a small sculpture made of earthenware and slip, replicating the shape of the animal. For those unaware, earthenware is ceramic or pottery. The ceramic model is short in size, measuring 9 inches in length and 6 inches in height. The model has a red, earthy tint and seems to have a smooth texture. The dog has triangular-shaped ears pointing up, almond-shaped eyes, and a small snout. The mouth's carving looks slightly worn out and lacks definition. Foldings on the ears, neck, and legs seem to be scratched, although this is most likely a consequence of time. The largest part of the sculpture is the abdominal area, which is balanced by 4 short legs. Due to the small legs and head proportions, the sculpture seems to resemble a modern-day chihuahua. The overall carving contrasts in color, looking yellow and even grayish compared to the rest of it. Something quite remarkable is the tail, which has a small opening at the end, otherwise known as the tail spout. This little detail actually reveals the model to be a vessel, meaning one of its functions was most likely to hold some sort of liquid or solid within it. The sculpture's creator is unknown, but it was most likely made by a pottery maker, which were common due to the amount of decorations that have been found over the years. The dog originates from Colima, Mexico, and is dated back to 99 to 250 BCE, which is sometime during the 1st and 3rd century. Precisely what was the primary use of this vessel? In Mayan mythology and overall pre-Columbian beliefs, dogs were considered to be companions of the god of the underworld, otherwise known as Xibalba. While other animals like jaguars and toads would represent deities themselves, dogs had a humbler role, mostly tied with aiding and companionship. According to the Penn Museum author Sarah Koenig, the ancient Maya universe consisted of 3 realms: the earth, the sky, and the underworld. The underworld was ruled by the court of Xibalba with 12 deities, 7 of which were demons that one would have to face. It was commonly believed that the underworld was unavoidable unless people were stillborn or sacrificed. This was due to the fact that if you died as a sacrifice, you would serve as an offering to a god rather than have your soul wander. And if a baby was stillborn, it meant that the soul had failed to join the body. In both cases, the soul would go directly to the heavens or the sky. Yet for most people, the soul would have to get past the underworld first before reaching the heavens. Therefore, assistance in navigating the underworld was a high concern for the Mayans. According to the Dayton Art Institute, people believed dogs guarded the dead's souls as they traveled through the dangerous regions of the underworld. Thus, funerary goods with dogs' shapes would be buried alongside the dead. The custom of burying the dead with objects isn't restrained for the Mayans, as it can also be seen in Egyptian and Chinese culture. Unlike the Chinese and Egyptian cultures, however, the Mayans would reserve burial gadgets for those considered elite. Only those of higher status, nobles, royalty, and even shamans would be provided with such objects. Therefore, the dog-shaped vessel must have either belonged to a deceased nobleman or woman, someone regarded as high status in the Maya society, or a living shaman who would use such an object in a ritual regarding the gods or the dead. While this vessel can lead us to information about Mayan mythology and their role in the underworld, the appearance of this vessel can also tell us about the role of living dogs. In many ways, these animals were used, varying from royalty and hunting dogs to dogs that would serve as food. Archaeologists have estimated that domesticated dogs have been in the western and southern parts of Mexico for about 3,000 years. According to scholar Jim Mouse, it is speculated that dogs would be purposefully fattened and eaten as ceremonial feasts by nobles, warriors, and priests, but not common men or women. This would explain why this dog sculpture and many of its kind have a large abdominal area. Bigger dogs would be used for hunting and would help catch deer or even birds. The luckiest would serve as companions to royalty and nobles throughout their lives rather than death. Due to its physical characteristics, this particular Colima dog would have most likely belonged to someone of high status or would have been cooked. It is important to note that this Colima dog sculpture is not the only one of its kind. They vary in size and style, showing the kinds of dogs that could have been found back then. Some of the vessels even wore human-like masks, which were believed to help scare the fearful creatures of the underworld away. According to the Dayton Art Institute, ancient stories illustrate the importance of the dogs in pre-Columbian culture due to their activities in life and death. One story tells us the first man who survived the Great Flood thanks to his friend, a dog. The dog did everything for this first man, including finding corn to eat and making fire. Now let's bring it back to the tail spout for a second. As mentioned previously, there are many variations of these dogs, and not all of them have a spout in the same place, or even at all. It is speculated that these vessels held something within them, but what could this be? Sarah Koenig states in her Crossing Boundaries essay, for the ancient Maya, the sense of smell was closely related to notions of the afterlife and connected those who inhabited the earth to those who inhabited the other realms of the universe. Both deities and the deceased nourish themselves by consuming smells. They consume the aromas of burning incense, cooked food, and other organic materials. Censers, the vessels in which these objects were burned, thus served as receptacles that allowed the living to communicate with and offer nourishment to deities and the deceased. Given that these spouts don't necessarily lead to an ample space or opening, the Mayans could have used this opening to burn incense to communicate with the gods or the dead. This artifact could have been used for communication rituals, but it might have easily been a burial gadget meant to aid the souls in its journey through the underworld. Yet it is easier to assume it was a funerary good. Lots of these vessels were found in tombs. This pottery dog takes us further into the role that animals played in a community, showing us how a society that was considered primitive compared to those who colonized it still managed to advance and domesticate animals like dogs. It also takes us deeper into the mythology, their views on the universe and realms, as well as challenging journeys and possible encounters with monsters and gods, like Xibalba. Though incredibly insightful and helpful, this Colima dog has its limitations, like the fact that it could have had more than one purpose, as an aid or even a censor. The purpose of this spout is unknown, as there is no explanation for its placement or even lack of presence in other sculptures of the sort. We seem to be running out of time, so let's discuss how this artifact could have helped us contextualize or understand a subject in our History 151 class. This artifact could have been useful when looking at the ceremonial ball game belt that resembles a toad. Though most likely used in a ritual before the ball game, the belt has a breathtaking shape that alludes to a toad held in high regard in the Mayan mythology. Toads worked as messengers for the god Xibalba. Looking at other animal-shaped objects like these dogs could have helped us understand more about such creatures' roles. To finalize, this Colima dog from the David Owsley Museum holds a lot of significance, giving us insight into the roles the animals played in the Mayan community, as well as peek into its belief system, while also helping us categorize what could be considered their class system, evidencing that not everyone is entitled or have the advantage of owning such an object even after death. The item has its limitations, with the fact that we don't know what its exact purpose was. Still, the possibilities it holds lets us see the Mayan society believes in accomplishments through their pottery creations.